evening. BP's chief executive has again been under intense pressure in Washington today, this time facing sustained and sometimes hostile questioning on Capitol Hill. Tony Hayward spent 6 hours testifying before a congressional committee investigating the oil spill, saying that he was personally devastated by what had happened. But the committee accused him of complacency, cutting corners on safety and being evasive with his answers. Here's our North America editor, Mark Mardell.
Are you looking forward to this, Mr. Hayward?
The chief executive, routinely called the most hated man in America, no longer walks with a bounce. He's learnt to appear and to sound contrite, to look squarely at the anger that daily confronts him. He was made to watch a video, testimony from 2 women whose husbands were killed in the explosion.
My family can never and will never be adequately compensated for our loss.
These are now widows with small children to take care of, and they are the symbols and the faces of this disaster, and I look forward to your testimony.
But first, he had to listen to more condemnation of his company.
As the details and facts about Deepwater Horizon come to light, it is clear to us all that the decisions made by officials at BP that reflected bad judgment at best and criminal negligence at worst.
Chairman Stoop.
When it was his turn, he didn't get very far. Hands and face blackened as if by oil, she shouted, "You should go to jail." Mr. Hayward's eyes flickered, but he didn't turn round. Finally, he was able to apologise.
The explosion and fire aboard the Deepwater Horizon and the resulting oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico never should have happened, and I'm deeply sorry that it did. When I learnt that 11 men had lost their lives, I was personally devastated.
Public apologies are all very well, but this committee has a purpose: to discover why the disaster happened. And their preliminary investigation has already decided that BP cut corners to save money. So they want detailed answers to that allegation, and they don't think they're getting them.
I wasn't part of that decision-making process. Again, I was not involved in decision-making. It's impossible for me to answer that question. I had no prior knowledge.
As the day wore on, the politicians' frustration turned to exasperation.
Are you failing to cooperate with other investigators as well? Because they're going to have a hard time reaching conclusions if you stonewall them, which is what we seem to be getting today.
I'm not stonewalling. I simply was not involved in the decision-making process.
My time has expired, and I'm just amazed at this testimony. Mr. Hayward, you're not taking responsibility. You're kicking the can down the road and acting as if you have nothing to do with this company.
You're really insulting our intelligence, with all due respect, by not giving us any answers and telling us that you have to wait for some investigation. I think the rest of the world isn't blind. We know what's happened, and we know that BP obviously didn't do what it was supposed to do. Only you don't know that.
I believe I have set the right tone. We've launched an investigation within 24 hours. We've made it open and transparent, and we're sharing with everyone the results as they come out.
It seems to me that BP has not been honest with the American people. It's not been honest with our government, and it seems as though you're trying to hide something.
But I want you to...
The assault in words and image went on and on. The only relief, a Texan Republican who apologised to BP for being forced to pay into a fund to help victims.
I think it is a tragedy of the first proportion that a private corporation can be subjected to what I would characterize as a shakedown.
Mr. Hayward may have very good reason not to prejudge such an important investigation, but he's hardly done himself or his company any favours. It's been yet another bad day for BP. Mark Mardell, BBC News, Washington.
Well, ahead of Mr. Hayward's testimony, the US committee looked at 30,000 documents relating to drilling at the Deepwater Horizon rig. It said none showed that BP paid even the slightest attention to the dangers. It also said that there are emails showing BP's own engineers raising safety concerns before the explosion and referring to the well as a nightmare. Well, our environment correspondent David Shookman has been looking at the evidence. David.
Michelle, thank you. Yes, Tony Hayward has been facing a barrage of detailed questions about BP's safety record, focusing on what went wrong on the Deepwater Horizon rig. The explosion, when it happened, was devastating, and the congressmen have been trawling through emails and documents to try to understand exactly what caused it. They're concentrating on several key decisions which they allege cut corners to speed things up. Now, the well had struck oil, but it was only being drilled for exploration, so it was due to be sealed up. Now, drilling mud is usually circulated to flush out any gas. It's claimed BP chose not to do this. Now, devices known as centralisers to keep the pipe in position were installed. BP opted for 6 of these. The subcontractor recommended 21. And the cement bond around the well would normally be tested. It said BP didn't do this. So the questions today were very specific.
Do you believe those decisions reflect the normal decision-making process at BP, or would you characterize those decisions as an exception to normal operating procedures?
There's nothing that I've seen in the evidence so far that suggests that anyone put costs ahead of safety.
Now, drilling operations to look for oil are clearly very expensive. The rigs are usually hired and delays add to the bill. So for the BP managers in charge of the operation, there might have been an incentive to hurry things along, as one former BP engineer describes.
Everything costs time, you know, to get things downhole, whether it's, let's say, a safety valve in production, whether it's a centralizer, whether it's to do a certain test. It all takes time. And you can imagine that there are these incredible pressures.
And those pressures are apparent from emails released to Congress. One BP engineer wrote that not running the tieback, that's a system for sealing the pipe, saves a good deal of time/money. A Halliburton contractor told BP that the well is considered to have a severe gas flow problem. And 6 days before the blast, a BP engineer admitted that this has been a nightmare well, which has everyone all over the place. Now, BP hasn't put its side of the story yet, except occasionally in this hearing to say its decisions were approved by the US authorities. As BP tries to stem the leak, it's also fighting a battle over how it started. Michelle.
David, thanks. David Shipman there.